Hey everybody, what is going on? Hexlex here. Got another Master Duel video for you. So coming at you with a follow-up to my Magistus fairy tale guide that I posted the other day. If you're interested in a full breakdown of what this archetype, this deck looks like in Master Duel right now, then you'll definitely want to check out that video because things are a lot different. We don't have a lot of the support cards that make this deck really exceptional in paper play. Stuff like the Charmer Quartet Link 4, the follow-up Endymion support, even Genea of the Ring. But not only in that video do I show you how to start with Spenta or Instant Fusion and get plays, here I'm actually going to touch upon a card I totally spaced on for that video, which was Metamorphasis. I just completely forgot they unbanned this card. Not only that, but in Master Duel, it's actually at 3, and we can use this card in order to set up some plays as well. So I'm going to show you how to take any level 4 monster, in this case I'm even just going to use a Mulcharmy, and make some plays with Metamorphosis. As always, ignore these other live cards in my hand. We're just going to be focusing on any level 4 monster that we normal summon, and then tribute off for Metamorphosis. By doing so, we are able to special summon the Weaver of Fairy Tales from our deck. Now we can activate the effect of Weaver of Fairy Tales. We're going to want to special summon the Fairy Tale Magistus from our deck. We can activate her effect upon being special summoned, and now we can go for the Fairy Tale Ball, adding that from deck to hand. Next up, we'll activate the effect of Fairy Tale Ball, and we'll add a copy of Fairy Tale Luna from our deck to our hand. Now we are ready to overlay into the Fairy Tale Wiccat, using our 2 level 4 Fairy Tale monsters. And of course, we're going to be activating her effect in order to dump a couple of Fairy Tale cards from our deck. Now, because Magistus is already in the graveyard, we're actually going to go for the Tales of the Fairy Tale and Once Upon a Fairy Tale as our 2 cards we'll dump. This will trigger the effect of Once Upon a Fairy Tale. We can set it to our field. And of course, we can also use the graveyard effect of the Tales of the Fairy Tale. We'll equip it to our Wiccat, and this actually gives us an extra normal summon, so we can normal summon that Luna that we added. After normal summoning Luna, we'll go ahead and activate her effect. We'll add the Fairy Tale Snow from our deck to our hand. We're also going to revive the Magistus. We'll throw her right over here. All right, now we can go ahead and use the Tales of the Fairy Tale effect. We are going to be fusion summoning. Oh, right, because I have a Magistus monster in hand. I was like, why is this an option? No, we're going to be fusion summoning into the Teller of Fairy Tales. We're going to use the Snow in hand and the Wiccat on board as materials. And we'll summon her right over here. Okay, now at this point, we do have the option to go into Rellona to pivot into Magistus, but one thing that's super important to note is the fact that Rellona actually requires 2 level 4 spellcaster monsters with different attributes. So if I were to try to overlay for her, as you can see, I would have to use, after Fairy Tale Luna or the Giru, yeah, you can see I have to use the Teller as a material. We obviously don't want to be doing that because the Teller is our Omni Negate. This needs to remain on the field. So from here, there are a couple of things that you could potentially do, right? Like try to link into Artemis and maybe link up into the Endymion. And in fact, I think that's actually exactly what we're going to do here. So we're going to go for the Artemis, right? And now we can link into the link to Endymion using Luna and Artemis as materials. So this will let us activate the effect of the Endymion here. Normally we would use this to equip Crowley in order to make the Invoked Macabre for follow-up, but here I'm actually going to equip the Artemis from the graveyard, because now I can activate Artemis's equip effect, and that'll let us add... Let's go for the Spenta here and do a little bit of deck thinning. We can activate the Spenta, discard in order to add a Magistus monster. Of course, we've already used our normal summon, so adding Zorora unfortunately really doesn't do that much here. We're just going to go ahead and add the Crowley. Now we can activate Crowley, special summoning, and then of course we'll activate the effect to fuse. And here you could either go for the Zorora or the... Oh no, Invoke Macabre is not here. I thought it was going to be on there for some reason. We'll just go Crowley and then link to Endymion. And that'll let us make Zorora. And then of course we can activate the Zorora effect. letting us equip anything we want from the graveyard. We'll just go and equip the Artemis here, so that way we can send her for these Aurora effects. So as you can see, this is not quite as fleshed out of an end board as if you had opened Spenta or the Instant Fusion, right? That end board has 4 negates, 2 turning a monster face down with snow, and a bounce a monster. This board only has 3 negates, 2 turn a monster face down, and also the ability to use Luna to bounce a monster, because as mentioned before, we didn't use our Link to Endymion in order to set up the Macabre for follow-up plays, because we had to use it to set up our Zorora for now. So by leading with Instant Fusion plus a Molcharmi or any normal summonable level 4 monster, you do miss out on 1 negation. But that said, if that level 4 monster is like Fairy Tail Luna or Magistus Zorora, obviously you're able to just do your full combo anyway because of the extra bodies you'll search. But again, just wanted to demonstrate that even with a hand trap, as long as it's level 4 and you can normal summon it, you can use Metamorphasis to get your Magistus Fairy Tail plays going. So now that I've shown you this example here, let me show you some gameplay from day 1 of the pack being released. All right, this first game is going to be a 5-turn back and forth up against Branded Dracotail, which of course is making use of the, not Branded Dracotail, whoa, sorry. It was Branded Elfnote, which of course is making use of the new Fidralis Harmonia. So here we are going to be going first, and I'm going to show you how to play through the Molcharmi Fuwa, or at least how I do with a hand like this. A lot of it is due in part to the Vare Magic Lacrima of Light that I opened. One of the first questions that I got asked on that Magistus Fairy Tail video, one of the comments was asking, is this deck good at playing into hand traps? And the answer is yes, mostly because of this card right here. You can chain this to any hand trap your opponent uses with the second effect, letting you instantly pull a Magistus monster out of your deck. So even though we got hit with the Fuwalos, we're able to still get an advantage on setting our board up. And I'm still going to set up multiple interactions while only giving them a couple of draws here. We're going to go for the ball and add Luna. In response, they're actually going to go for Elfnote Regina, discarding the Fortuna and then summoning out the Lucina. After I normal summon Luna, they use the Lucina effect in order to bounce it, which I definitely think was a misplay. They absolutely could and should have waited for... Oh, it's only level 6 or lower. I was going to say the Wick Cap, but no. Probably the Magistus Aurora then. I think that definitely threatens a lot more here than the Fairy Tail side of things, but... yeah, we're going to add Spenta after equipping the Artemis and then go for Crowley. We're going to use the Crowley effect here, and I'll use Crowley to fuse. Now, initially, I was thinking about just ending on Teller of Fairy Tales and then passing, but after my opponent summoned Regina and Lucina, I actually changed my mind and decided to go for an extra summon here from the extra deck, that being the Invoked Macabre. Now we're going to go for the Tales of the Fairy Tale here, and we can even rename our opponent's Lucina into Prince of Fairies. That way we can use it as fusion material, because she's already a spellcaster. Excuse me, a spellcaster. And, yeah, we actually get to use Teller's board wipe effect on the Regina to stop our opponent's turn 0 plays. So there you go. I mean, that's a pretty solid demonstration there. Granted, as mentioned before, we did open the Vare Lacrima of Light, but it's a lot of the reason why we play 3 copies of this card in our deck is because of just how good it is at letting us push through hand traps. And as you can see, we only gave our opponent 2 draws. They're only ending on a normal 5-card hand, 1 less than they would be on if they, you know, hadn't used the Regina from hand. And we still have the Macabre negate, the Teller negate, the Ball negate, and the Luna bounce. 4 pieces of interaction here. So they're going to go for Magnamut here, banishing the Matchgear out of my graveyard. And then they'll get to search during the end phase. They went straight to battle phase, which allowed me to make good use of the Fairy Tail Luna effect. See, she can bounce a monster, but your opponent can negate the effect by sending a monster with the same name to the graveyard from the deck. Of course, Bestial Magnum Hut is limited. It's at 1, so I knew they were not going to have another Magnum Hut to send. So we can spare them from running over our Teller here. Now, they're going to go for Medius Appear. This I'll use the Invoked Macabre on, because I only have monsters in hand, so I really want to save my Teller for a spell or trap card. And then, of course, the Macabre can banish the Medius Appear, meaning that we're able to make sure it doesn't come back. Here, I'm going to let the Welcome Home summon the Regina, because I knew that I could just use Fairy Tail Ball on whatever monster got special summoned. So here, we can just negate the Regina, not have to deal with her. They're going to go for Fallen of the White Dragon, special summoning, and activating the effect, to which I will finally use the Teller banish and, well, banish a Fairy Tail card to negate and destroy. We can reset the Once Upon a Fairy Tale, and then during their end phase, they're going to use the Albion effect in order to add the Fallen and the Virtuous. Now they can activate Fallen and the Virtuous, sending away the Sprint Dash to pop my Teller. Now Sprint Dash can special summon the Fallen of Albaz from hand. And at first I was a little bit concerned because I thought they were going to fuse into Mirror Jade, but I don't know what happened here. I don't know if they misclicked or if they're not playing Mirror Jade or what, but they actually don't even use the Albaz effect, so I got a little bit lucky there. That said, even if they had fused the Macabre way, I definitely still would have had counterplays. It just would have been a little bit more annoying. And they're going to add Fidralis Harmonia from deck to hand off the Magnum Hut. All right, we're going to find another copy of Fairy Tale Ball, but I'm going to begin with the Artemis search. They're going to chain Ash Blossom, and I'm totally fine with that. I'm not going to use the Macabre here, because obviously I would much rather hit the Fidralis Harmonia. Maybe they purposefully didn't activate Albaz because they wanted to hang on to Ash Blossom, but I kind of think if that's the case, that's a misplay, because the Mirror Jade would have a lot more impact than the Ash Blossom here. Naturally, I'm going to use the Fidralis Harmonia to negate the Macabre to negate and banish the Fidralis Harmonia. Because Harmonia was negated, the Synchro monster does not get sent, so I don't have to worry about something like Malong, bouncing one of my cards. Here I want to make the Borload Savage Dragon, but I actually made it too early. It was a misplay on my part. I totally forgot that Once Upon a Fairy Tale can only be activated after being banished if you control a Fairy Tale monster. So I missed Lethal here by not realizing that that effect was, being applied here. So a bit of a misplay on my part, but I'm not concerned about it, because going into my opponent's top deck, I have the Borload Omni negate. I still have the Invoked Macabre, which can now negate a monster or a spell, and I have, tons of follow-up here. So they'll simply activate that Welcome Home that didn't do anything, and as you saw, we swung in for lethal right afterward. So yeah, there we go. I think that's a pretty good example of how a more average, or typical, I guess I should say, Magistus Fairy Tale game will go. Obviously, we still want to see the one-card combos. Again, if you want to see the one-card combos for Spenta and Instant Fusion, link in the guide below. But it's also good to demonstrate playing through hand traps like Fuwalos. But I have another replay here that'll also show us playing through hand traps. Okay, this time we're up against Argostars, but moreover, we are going to be demonstrating a turn where we get hit with the Droll and Lockbird. Not only that, but our opponent is going to have a Nibiru later on in the duel. All right, so we got this hand here. Would have loved to see this hand going second, but it's all good. We're going to Spenta for the Zorora here, and then our opponent's going to hit us with that Droll and Lockbird as mentioned. So I'm still going to normal summon Zorora. We'll activate, we'll equip the Nina Ruru from the extra deck. We can special Spenta, and here I'm actually going to overlay Zorora and Spenta for the Fairy Tale Witcat. Now we can use the Witcat effect. We're going to detach 2 and dump Magic Guru and Tails of the Fairy Tale. Magic Guru can special summon, Tails will equip, and then we'll activate Tails, fusing the Magic Guru with the Wallonia, sorry. Magistus of Ver from our hand in order to make Teller. I think that was actually a misplay on my part. I think I definitely should have fused with the Witcat that was on board, keeping the Wallonia in hand, because I could have normal summoned her later to add Magistus Ver and potentially try to get some amount of follow-up, but... So yeah, only the one negate going into our opponent's turn. It's a little bit rough, but they're going to set 3 face-down cards before passing back over to us. You might be wondering why I didn't use the Teller effect on the Argostars home stadium. That's because at the time, during my opponent's turn, during the actual game itself, I thought there was a decent chance they might actually have some out of Argostars plays, and didn't want to just, obviously, blow my only negate right off the bat. But here we are going to top deck the Fairy Tale Luna. I'll normal summon, and then we'll use that in order to add the Fairy Tale Snow from deck to hand. Now we'll once again equip Tails the Fairy Tale, this time to the Witcat, and we can even revive the Magic Guru. Magic Guru is going to add the Fairy Tale Ball from deck to hand, which I'll activate, adding another copy of Luna. And then I'll turn Witcat to attack mode. I actually am planning to threaten to go, battle and OTK my opponent here, because as you're about to see in a moment, yeah, I have way more than 8,000 damage on board. And here's the thing, even if my opponent starts to summon a bunch of trap monsters like this Azaroon, it actually doesn't matter because Fairy Tail Ball has an effect that says your Fairy Tail monsters can attack directly. So I don't even have to push through anything here because all 5 monsters that are totaling to 10,000 damage are Fairy Tail monsters. So when they summon Azaroon, I'm not going to negate it because I'm not planning on special summoning as much anymore. Statue of Anguish pattern. This I probably should have just negated with Teller as it was activating. But I figured I could just negate the effect, you know, once it hits the board. They're going to try to pop my Wickhat. I'll use the Teller effect. And their last face down card is actually Apophis, the Swamp Deity, which means they get to negate my Teller. So ultimately, it doesn't really matter that I didn't negate it, you know, earlier. They would have just chained Apophis anyway. Although, to be fair, Apophis, hang on, does it negate? Then you can negate the effects of a face-up monster your opponent equals the other. Oh, I think if I had actually negated it on activation, that would have worked out. Because even if they had chained Apophis, there wouldn't have been any other continuous trap monsters on the field at the time. So to play around exactly Apophis, a Swamp Deity, I definitely should have chained Teller to the activation of Statue of Anguish pattern in the spell trap zone, not the on-field effect. That was a misplay on my part. But here I'm going to use the Wickhat effect. We'll send the snow in order to special summon. And the reason I'm actually reviving the Wickhat is to be used as a fusion material here in a moment. We're going to equip Artemis thanks to the Brilliona in our graveyard. Oh no, it was a Spenta, sorry. Now we can go for the Crowley off the Spenta search, and I'll fuse Crowley with the Wickhat in order to make the Zorora fusion monster. And again, that's why I brought back the Wickhat, was to make sure I had the right materials for that. Now I'm going to try to equip the Azaroon as a material, but here's that Nibiru. Thankfully, the Zorora has the ability to negate a monster effect, and fun fact, Zorora does not have to destroy the card it's negating, it can destroy any other card in the field. So I'm going to pop the Statue of Anguish pattern, equip the Azaroon, and here my opponent's going to end up conceding. I don't think I quite had lethal, because I would have needed to use the Zorora in order to battle over the, the Apophis, but let's see, 1850 times 2 is 3700 times 2 is 7400. I would have been just 600 damage short if I had revived Fairy Tail Snow, but the fact that I would have been short no matter what thing, that tells me that I think I should have just not revived Snow there. Swung in with my, you know, Zorora over the Apophis, my 3 Fairy Tail monsters, and then I could have potentially used Snow on a follow-up turn. Either way, I'm pretty sure we were just all set there between the fact that we still had the Zorora, and then we had Callby, and we had a bunch of other stuff to try to stop our opponent from making plays there. So let me show you the build, and then we will finish off the video here. All right, so here is my current build for Magistus Fairy Tail. It's very similar to the one I showed in my full comprehensive guide, which is again going to be linked down below if you want to check that out for some more information. But of course, the obvious inclusion is the card I missed in that video, which is Metamorphasis. As showing here, we are rocking a full playset of 3, because as I demonstrated at the beginning of the video, even with just a Mulch Army card and no other extenders in hand, you can still end on a decently respectable end board, right? So we are missing quite a bit that gives Magistus Fairy Tail that punch though, right? And when I say quite a bit, I mean quite a bit. Again, I don't mean to keep constantly referencing that other guide video, but we kind of covered all these follow-up cards in the guide video that I'll link down below. But we're missing Jania of the Ring, which if that card was in Master Duel, Luna would be a 1-card starter for your full combo. We're missing the Link 4 Charmers in Quartet. That would allow you to actually Link climb into a really decent end board body while still being under that spellcaster lock, right? And of course, we're missing all of the follow-up Endymion support, which is just generally really, really good for spellcaster decks, and is a great buff to Magistus Fairy Tail. So upon initial release in Master Duel, this deck is definitely weaker than I thought or hoped it would be. I think that if I had to place this deck, I'd probably place it around like mid tier 3, maybe upper tier 3, but it is lacking a little bit of that punch. That said, I do think that there is a lot to look forward to in the future. So if you think you might be interested in Magistus Fairy Tale when all that follow-up support comes out, when any amount of it comes out, really, because they don't all necessarily have to work together. They can each function individually, right, as far as helping the deck. Like, if Genii of the Ring came out and no other cards that I mentioned, then this deck would still receive a massive buff, same as if it was just the Charmer in Quartet and nothing else. But yeah, like I said, we are missing multiple support cards that would really help buff both the consistency and end board of this deck. So I do think it is a little bit weak right now. But as I mentioned before, if you're even slightly inclined that you might want to try this deck, it's still worth it to pick up the stuff now, and then you won't have to worry about it later. Some other notable differences from my build in the guide videos: I'm only on one copy of each Matchgiru and Teller of Fairy Tales, and I think that's completely fine. Even though my example build from that guide video had 2 copies of each, you can also definitely just play one and the deck totally still functions. I think having a second copy of each would be nice. For Matchgiru, it's just nice to have access to this if it gets banished. Of course, even if it does get banished, you could summon it off of Once Upon a Fairy Tale, but you never know when having an extra copy might come in handy. It's also not terrible to open as an extender. It doesn't really function as a starter, but if you open it alongside like Spenta, you're not disappointed. And Teller, yeah, Teller is, unfortunately, despite being such a powerful card with the board wipe and Omni Negate, really low on stats, only 1850 attack. Of course, this is in line with all the other Fairy Tale cards, but it does make her really easy to just simply battle over. And yeah, there are a lot of games where you might want to go into a second copy on your turn 3 if your opponent used their turn 2 to battle over your turn 1 Teller. So if you pulled second copies of either Teller or Matchgiru, definitely hang on to them, and I think they're definitely worth playing. But if you're like me and you only pulled one of each, also totally fine. Deck still functions completely okay with only one copy of each of those Fairy Tale cards. So I am still going to keep messing around with this deck and see if I can get a little bit more of a consistent build, and or if I can find any tech cards that'll really kind of help shore up the weaknesses of the deck until that follow-up support comes out later. But yeah, I think for the time being, that's just about going to go ahead and do it. So thank you so very much for watching. As always, I super appreciate that. Especially watching till the end is one of the best ways to support a smaller YouTube channel like myself. But that is going to do it for now, so let's move on to our outro. Hey everybody, Hexlex here. Thank you so very much for watching all the way to the very end of the video, which, by the way, is one of the best ways to support the channel. Speaking of supporting the channel, take a look at the names on screen. These are folks who have been so generous as to either join as a YouTube member or subscribe over on patreon.com/Hexlex to support. There's also perks for doing so. If you would like to see YouTube videos early, as well as some exclusive videos that get uploaded to YouTube, but for one reason or another I decide not to publish, definitely go ahead and hit that join button to see content early, as well as some exclusive content. If you're looking for more exclusive content, over on patreon.com, I upload exclusive videos that are not posted on YouTube just about every single day. Whether you choose to subscribe over on Patreon, join as a YouTube member, or simply continue to watch, your support is greatly appreciated. Thank you so very much. But for now, this is Hexlex. I am signing out, and I hope that you have a fantastic day.